Once upon a time in a convenience store, a woman asked, "Which zero-calorie drink will I like more?" The cashier said, "I have a thought. Coke Zero Sugar always hits the spot." The taste made her heart fill with laughter, and with her Coke Zero Sugar, she lived happily ever after. Coca-Cola Zero Sugar, unbelievably delicious.
No trip to the store is complete without the unbelievably delicious zero-calorie taste of Coke Zero Sugar. Pick some up at 7-Eleven today.
It is 10 a.m. in the East, 7 a.m. in Las Vegas, Nevada, and 8 a.m. in Costa Rica, home of most of the world's top offshore sports books, and of course, sportsbookreview.com. Good morning, folks. I'm Joe Duffy of OffshoreInsiders.com. Got to tell you a quick story. Oh, man, to say the least, 23 and a half hours ago yesterday, I was livid. Some of you probably saw I had some audio issues, wound up recording this, and you couldn't hear me, so we did do an emergency re-record. We figured out the problem, and I can now see on my screen that the audio is working. But if you're a gambler, you're superstitious, right? Any form of gambling, whether it's sports picks or poker, blackjack. So when I had those audio problems, I was like, oh boy, this is a bad omen. Today's picks aren't going to work out too well. Well, thank goodness Stevie Vincent was right. Superstition isn't the way. Even by our standards, great day yesterday. 8-1 with our picks. 4-0 with Wise Guy Plays. And there you can see 67-37 with college and NFL going back to the preseason. 2 NFL Wise Guy Plays, 6 majors, season high, 8 winners at OffshoreInsiders.com. Do apologize for those technical issues yesterday. Of course, as you see, been using some upgraded software. Still not quite sure why it did it. I figured out how to fix it. Still not sure why there wasn't audio, but, doing some test things now. So we like this improved software, and thank all of you folks for joining us. Now let's get straight to it. Some news and notes brought to you by Sportsbook Review. The Jaguars and the Steelers. Now, Jacksonville, despite a 2-2 against the spread margin, despite a 2-2 against the spread record, they have a league-leading plus 10.1 against the spread margin. That's because their two covers were by 27.5 and 40. Their setbacks were by 20 and 7. So talk about feast or famine. That's what the Jaguars have been, or the Jaguars, so I can sound more sophisticated. Pittsburgh is the only team to go under all 4 games in the NFL this year, but by a modest minus 6.6 as all games went under by 8 or fewer points. Steelers do have the league-leading best defense, allowing 4.2 yards per play. Again, yards per play, the single most important statistic when it comes to measuring offense and defensive competence. Steelers wide receiver Martavis Bryant is now probable. So again, we give great information for the gambler and the fantasy football player. And of course, at those sportsbooks at sportsbookreview.com. You can see there in the see when I'm on TV, I would never be a weatherman. There you go. Sportsbookreview.com, the top sports books if you want to bet various fantasy propositions. Some rain is expected throughout. By the way, Bryant, 10 receptions this year after 50 in 11 games last year. So he a key player, with Antonio Brown, arguably the best, well, certainly one of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL when it comes to at wide receiver. The Packers and the Cowboys. Just the Packers' second road game. They were blown out in their first one to Atlanta. Falcons, you could argue, in fact, I don't know if you can argue against the only quality offense that they really faced. And Cowboys linebacker Sean Lee and Anthony Hitchens. Looks like Sean Lee will probably not play. Revenge for the Cowboys. They lost in the playoffs at 51-yard field goal. His time expired last year. Crazy game. Green Bay wide receiver Randall Cobb, 5 straight games against Dallas with at least 7 receptions. Aaron Rodgers, 13 touchdowns, 2 interceptions to Dallas. But Dak Prescott for Dallas, 14 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in his last 7 home games. And Ezekiel Elliott rushed for more than 100 yards in both games to Green Bay. Packers wide receiver Devontae Adams is questionable, 16 catches after 75 last year. He's a heck of a receiver. Packers running back Ty Montgomery is doubtful, 3.3 yards per carry this season on 46 touches after getting 5.9 last year. One of your free winners, we like this game over the total. Been telling you all year, not sold on the Green Bay Packers' allegedly improved defense with that nitro defense. They're not very good, and quite frankly, the Cowboys heck of an offense, not much of a defense. And, folks, if you do like our videos here, the Sportsbook Review videos, please literally like us. And for those of you who are watching the rebroadcast on YouTube, remember you can join us Saturdays and Sundays, Sportsbook Review Facebook page, live, Saturdays and Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And who are you, the Jets versus Browns? Well, who you taking? We're gonna discuss that game. Thank you for the interaction. And I do see that my groovy software, your responses are in white, and of course at the bottom the kind of a white background. So I had a little trouble seeing it. We're going to discuss just about every single one of these games. And again, offshoreinsiders.com. We are sizzling hot. You can see the record at the bottom of the screen. Bills and the Packers team off of a win as a road underdog of more than 7 points, and then hitting the road again, getting 3 or more. Just 3-12 against the spread since 2010 and 41% since 1988. That would favor the Bengals. So again, the NFL tends to be a regression to the mean sport. The Bills, one of 2 4-0 against the spread teams, though they're 6th in the margin of cover at 7.5. And again, margin of cover, some people call it the sweat barometer. It is how much a team does or does not cover by. And so it's really to measure when a team, do they really have a good spread record, a bad spread record? And it's used, we can debate. I've talked it over with a bunch of people how exactly to weigh it, but there are many different ways to weigh it. And for the most part in the NFL, a lot of our best systems are regression to the mean, so going with the worse against the spread margin team. Buffalo, the number 2 under team, going under 3 of 4 by minus 11.5. Cincinnati, second best yards per play on defense, allowing just 4.4. Bengals tight end Tyler Eifert is out, 4 catches in 2 games. Could be periodic rain there. And, well, somebody said the Jets, Ninja, I'm guessing that's probably not your real name. Ninja, he says, the Jets taking the loss. We're going to talk about that game right now. A couple people have already asked about that, and we're going to talk about that game right now. I may actually have a pick on that game, or maybe not. Now, winless teams that are not favorites are 126 and 96 against the spread, but an angle that says if a road team is a small favorite or underdog, yet their away winning percentage is inferior to their opponent's home winning percentage, go with the road team. That's 101 and 53, and that would favor the Browns. Now, one of the reasons I do like that angle, when a theory crosses over in different sports, I'm a big fan of that. And I will tell you, NBA, let's see, the 8th, it starts in 12 days, right? It'll be, 2 weeks ago from the Friday that just passed. We have an NBA angle that's tremendous like this, kind of an anti-splits. And again, to oversimplify, to explain what I'm saying, is basically if you would look at a team's home-road splits, and the home-road splits alone would say that the home team should definitely be a favorite, if not a fairly big favorite, but yet the road team is favorite, go with the odds maker's knowledge. That's one of my many angles that says use the odds maker's knowledge against them. And it applies in the NFL, it applies in the NBA, and they are definitely the most important sports as far as this angle is concerned because they play the most balanced schedules. College football, college basketball especially, a little tough to come up with an angle like that because teams play such unbalanced schedules. But again, it's a kind of an anti-splits, and a lot of handicappers out there over the years, I like to read articles from other handicappers and bettors, and so many have written them about home road splits, home road dichotomy, and they think you're actually supposed to go with the if a team is much better at home than on the road, they say, well, then go with the home team under those circumstances. That is false. Now, not to say I didn't used to subscribe to that theory, but that's one of the great things about the computer software is that you can always test those series. And Nick Williams says he does like the Ravens, and Brian Carter, thank you. He says he's going with the Chargers +3 and the Lions -3. Well, again, we are going to discuss all those games, and very appropriate. Thanks for the feedback. The Panthers and the Lions. The Lions are 3-1 against the spread, and I'm very glad to see, that audio is working. You don't even know how angry I was. Plus, I'll share something with you personally. I had to take my son to work, and about a 25-minute round trip, and I was steaming. I came back. I kind of figured out what it was, and we re-recorded it, but that should never, ever happen again. Facebook Live on Sportsbook Reviews Facebook page, 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And also, again, if you're watching the rebroadcast on YouTube, give us a like there. The experts tell us that will help us with exposure. Your vote of confidence says you want this more. And, thank you for any likes that you do give us on social media. Lions are 3-1 against the spread. They're second in the league with a 10 against the spread margin, or sweat barometer. Some of you know about that. The only non-cover was by inches to Atlanta. Literally inches. I'm sure most of you saw the end of that game where it looked like that Detroit had actually won the game, and they wound up losing outright. Carolina stunned the Patriots last week. Teams off of a win as a road underdog of more than 7 points and hitting the road again. We just gave this and getting 3 or more, just 3-12 against the spread, and 41% going back to 1988. That would favor the Lions. The Panthers gave up a combined 6 points in the first 2 games and 64 their last 2. So, of course, we had to look it up. Teams allowing 30 points or more average over the last 2 games, but less than 18 for the season, have gone over at a 17-9 rate. So that says bet the recent trends, including 7-1 if the average is at least 32 points the last 2 games. That would say to go with Carolina over the total average points scored in those games, 51. Now, Carolina is averaging 8.8 yards per pass in their 2 road games. Panthers hold teams normally getting 7 yards per pass to just 5.8. And that's one of those stats that we do really like, where it's kind of a power rating. When we said, the really the most important stats, not just yards per play, but yards per pass, yards per rush, yards per play, but then relative to what their opponents normally allow. And that's a stat that you'll hear us give, especially now that we're several games into the season and it becomes more statistically reliable. Carolina safety Kurt Coleman is out, 20 tackles this year after 90 each of the previous 2 years. Greg Olsen is out for the Panthers, among the top tight ends in the NFL, 77 or more catches each of the past 2 years. We do have a free play on this game, Carolina, plus the 2.5. It is actually not a premium pick, to be perfectly honest with you, but Matt Stafford, as you know, I've been a guy who says he's predictably unpredictable. I do know that since he changed our offensive coordinator, last year, he has been better, but I bet against unpredictability there. Carolina is another free pick for you. 49ers and the Colts. The Colts, though 2-2 against the spread, have a league worst minus 10.8 against the spread margin. Both of those covers are by 3, but their losses were by 33.5 and 15.5. And of course, as you know, Andrew Luck remains out. Now, one of the really groovy things I like about this software is, look, we can take a look at the screen. Make sure you check SBR odds for the latest line moves. You'll never, ever get screwed by a line move again. And again, all these sports books up here, thoroughly vetted. There is no better website. There is no better clearinghouse. It's basically the Consumer Reports for sports books. They will not put a sports book up here unless it's thoroughly approved and vetted. And, of course, the best sports picks at offshoreinsiders.com. Make sure you visit offshoreinsiders.com for the best sports picks. Not only mine, but just some of the sources that we've used going back to the Scorephone days. Again, we've got proven winners going back to the 1980s. All right, now back to some great information for you. The Titans and the Dolphins, definitely a very important game here as far as injuries are concerned. Let's see, Mara, I must have pasted. Do I have this twice? Marcus Mariota will not. There we go. I do see it. So every now and then, I cut and paste information, and as it comes in, and then I wound up having 2 entries for the same team. And one of the latest pieces of information to come in, Marcus Mariota will not play for the Titans. Miami is 1-2 with the second worst against the spread margin in the NFL at minus 10 points. But remember, because of Hurricane Irma, they've only played 3 games. Tennessee, the number 2 over team in the NFL, going over 3-1 by a 12.4 margin. Dolphins, though, the top under team, going under all three by minus 19.5. Miami last in the NFL in yards per play at 4.2. In addition to Marcus Mariota being out, rookie Corey Davis is out. 7 catches in 2 games. He was supposed to be the star receiver. Chance of isolated storms. And also, because of Hurricane Irma, the fluke is the Dolphins, this is their home opener. First time they played a home game in 52 days since their last preseason game. All right, somebody says he is an expert on tennis. You know, I know that SBR does have some tennis experts both on the YouTube page and on the Facebook Live. I know they do some great stuff. So the best thing, Radolf, is to contact SBR. They may or may not be looking for a tennis expert, and, you know, send them a resume, a tape, and you never know. All right, the Cardinals and the SBR, without question. I was so ecstatic a couple years ago to hook up with them. But look, again, there are other very good websites out there that I use for handicapping, but as I said, nobody does multimedia as good as sportsbookreview.com, and I'm so grateful to be a part of that. So yeah, send them a audition tape and resume and whatever. Maybe they could use you. The Cardinals and the Eagles. Arizona only 0-4 against. They're the only 0-4 against the spread team, and by an average margin of minus 7.4. Arizona leads the league in snaps at 71.5. Philadelphia's second at 70.2. And as I said, when we handicap totals, you want to look at pace. And, college basketball is, a month or so away? Love that in college basketball, especially Ken Palm, a great source for pace and points per possession, offensive efficiency, or whatever. But these are the 2 top teams in the NFL in terms of snaps. But teams that combine for 140 or more snaps on average, and the total is 46 or less, is actually going under 39-25 in the first half of the season. So, not an automatic over. Both of these teams snap the ball a lot, but it does not mean an over. You always got to test those theories. Philadelphia with the 3rd worst defense, allowing 6.2 yards per play. Expect some light rain, and you may even see in the background we're getting some rain here from the outer bands of that latest hurricane. It'll just be a tropical storm. But here at the offshoreinsiders.com, palatial but not overly ostentatious international headquarters, we're getting some rain here. Regression to the mean based on against the spread margin that favors Arizona is 168 and 117. So usually when you do have a big difference in ATS margin, or the so-called sweat barometer, go with the worst team. Running back Wendell Smallwood, this is pretty new information. Just came into the headquarters within the last hour. He's been downgraded to very unlikely to play. He's a key player for them. 29 carries for 113 yards so far this year. And again, thank you for all those giving us some likes. And again, if you're watching it on YouTube, please give us a like there as well. The Seahawks versus the Rams. The Rams have gone over all 4 games by an average of 16.9 points per game. Only team that's gone over every game, and the number 2 team by a 12.4 margin. Rams are second in the NFL in yards per play. And look, that's basically the key to handicapping them. Is Jared Goff for real? That's the number 1 key to handicapping them, both when it comes to the side or total. And yes, thank you for those of you who have brought in those likes. We much appreciate it. And join us every Saturday and Sunday here at Sportsbook Review Live, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. You can catch it on demand. If you're out there in the West Coast, maybe you are watching this on demand. But it's on demand both on YouTube at my page, Offshore Insiders. We just don't have enough time to get it on the Sportsbook Review page because of the tight window. And, of course, always on demand, Sportsbook Review Facebook page. Chargers and the Giants. Chargers linebacker Jatavius Brown is questionable. He was limited in practice on Friday. Key player, 41 tackles this season. Chargers wide receiver Terrell Williams has been upgraded. He will play. 16 catches this year after 69 last year. Chargers rookie Mike Williams, number 7 overall pick, remains out, but our sources say he could play next week. So again, a lot of this information overlaps with the fantasy football players. That's very key for you fantasy football players, or when the opening line does come out later tonight. Keep that in mind, Chargers could get a big boost on their offense next week. Ravens and the Raiders. Somebody asked about this game earlier on the chat box, I guess is what they call it, the Ravens and the Raiders. Baltimore, the second worst yards per play at 4.3 on offense. Ravens wide receiver Jeremy Maclin officially listed as questionable, but our sources say that he will play. 10 catches after 54 last year and 87-85 before that, so he is a key player. Ravens tight end Ben Watson listed as questionable, but we say probable. 16 catches after 74 last year. Well, I already told you at the beginning of this broadcast, thank goodness superstition proved to be wrong, but I meant to type TE. I put TD, Ben Watson, so maybe that means for you fantasy football players he's going to score a touchdown or two today. Derek Carr is not going to play for Oakland. He's their franchise player. Sunday night football. And we got some picks on that at offshoreinsiders.com. The Chiefs versus the Texans. Kansas City 4-0, the best spread record, but plus 9.9 against the spread margin, which is third in the league. The Chiefs with a league-leading 6.8 yards per play. Monday Night Football. Let's talk about some Monday Night Football. And again, you can keep checking all the latest line moves at Sportsbook Review at sbrodds.com. Just a fantastic website where you get all the latest and all right, well, I should have gone to the NFL page. That's just today's stuff. But you can get you can even bet preseason basketball, though no odds up, but they will have some odds, and baseball later today. Again, sbrodds.com. It does not get better than that, and I especially love it, again, folks, when it comes to the games getting underway, your scores in progress are there. Mitch Trubisky starts for Chicago, and it's certainly been my experience, and let's see, you didn't mention the side on the Seahawks-Rams game. Well, we got some good stuff at offshoreinsiders.com. I can promise you that. Ninja. Great premium picks today, the season-high winners at offshoreinsiders.com. We give our free picks here, folks, and some of the other stuff is, we report, you decide, for both those of you who handicap your own games and for the fantasy football player alike. Mitch Trubisky starts, said it many times, when a team is playing poorly and they make some type of a change, whether it's changing a quarterback in this case, and especially if it's not because of an injury, but then again, there are some injury handicapping edges that we have. But, a coaching change. Remember a couple weeks ago, one of our biggest plays of the year was when we went with the Cincinnati Bengals against Green Bay, when they changed the offensive coordinator. Changes for the sake of changes, very good. More times than not, they do work short term, whether or not work long term. But look, Trubisky was great in the preseason. You don't want to overanalyze preseason action, but when you're talking about a rookie quarterback, what he did do in the preseason has some significance. He looked great. Mike Glennon, of course, was terrible. 5 interceptions and 5 fumbles. Ninja, you could be the quarterback for the Bears, and that would be a little bit of an upgrade over to what Mike Glennon has done this year. Rookies making their first start in game 1 of the season, which this is not, a 13-9 against the spread, but very interesting, 5-10 against the spread in all other games. So that would actually say to fade Trubisky. Dalvin Cook is out for the Vikings, replaced by Latavius Murray. Murray averaging 2.7 yards per carry. Vikings quarterback Sam Bradford is questionable. He's probably going to be a game-time decision. I'm honored. I do a weekly podcast. I'm a guest on a weekly guest on a podcast. I think it's done a few times a week. I think it's a Purple FTW, as in for the win. And, I said it's like Maxine Nightingale there, right back where we started from. Every week it is about the status of Sam Bradford. Case Keenum, he did have one good game. The Tampa, 2 bad games to Detroit and Pittsburgh, as I always say. When a starting quarterback is injured, now we were talking about that just a little earlier on this game. When a starting quarterback is injured, we do find out short-term teams rally around that, but long-term, there is a point of diminishing return. Look for the Bears to pound the ball with Jordan Howard and Tariq Coleman. Vikings Adam Thielen, he's third in the league in receiving yards off a breakout season, which he had 69 receptions, among the most underrated players in the NFL. And yes, thank you, Bryant, and thank you for the thank you for the thank yous. Thank you for the feedback, folks. We will be here next Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. But again, make sure you go to SBR Odds for all your odds needs. Once the games get underway, you'll see the scores in progress here. You'll see situational updates. It's like having your own private red zone. So if you're not in a sports bar, if you don't, how many TVs do you have at home? It is a great place to follow SBR Odds. And, of course, the greatest picks in the history of the earth are at offshoreinsiders.com. And very grateful we figured out. Sorry about those audio problems yesterday. Trust me. Look, I know I appreciate the feedback, and I'm sure quite a few of you were upset, not as upset as I was. But, new and improved software. Maybe there's going to be a glitch, but we will see you at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And again, thank you for the very kind feedback from everybody in the chat box. We'll talk to you 10 a.m. Eastern Time next Saturday and Sunday, or you can catch us on demand, Sportsbook Review Facebook page.
The new year comes with new ways for pros to save at Lowe's. Like when you're ready to tackle your taxes, we'll help you save up to $100 off federal tax preparation when you file through TurboTax. All you have to do is sign up to become a Lowe's Pro Loyalty member by January 25th, and the savings is yours. This exclusive offer is for new Lowe's Pro Loyalty members only, so sign up at lowesforpros.com/proloyalty. Lowe's, the new home for pros. Discount valid on select TurboTax services through October 15th. More terms apply. U.S. only.